Hello, friends. It's your guy, it's your dude, it's your man, your buddy, and your pal, the knick-knack, cardiac attack, patty whack, Raptus, here to show you the way that we do part number 3 of this tutorial spree to solidify your tech and boost your paycheck. You can find the repository link in the video description. You can also find a link to the final project as well as the next tutorial. Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Follow along for the best result. In the last tutorial, we wound up with what you see on the left. An awesome, cool, fresh to death grid of thumbnail cells that intelligently fetches data based on the user's behavior. Today, we're primarily going to focus on doing nothing at all. Just kidding. We're going to simulate the individual image or emoji downloads. We're going to recruit additional helper classes to assist with controlled thumbnail downloading. This is going to be most of what we do. We're going to keep track of which downloads are successful and which ones fail. We will introduce several new visual states to our thumb cells. Then a separate downloader task will occur for each of the image or emoji items themselves. By the time we're done, the cells will not show their emoji until this image or emoji, and I use those interchangeably, is completed with its download. The downloads are going to arrive in a first come, first serve fashion. In the final tutorial, we'll be prioritizing the order that these downloads arrive in order to make them come from the top left. But for now, let's kick off round 3 of this 4-part tutorial series. And let's do that by building our downloader. And this is going to be a prioritized downloader. So I'm going to go new file, Swift file, and I'm going to create priority data downloader. And I'm going to drag this up to the top. This is going to be a class, priority data downloader. And I want to initialize it with how many things I want to download at once. So I'm going to say init number of simultaneous downloads as an int, and I'm just going to make this into a private let number of simultaneous downloads as an int. Then I'm just going to say self.number of simultaneous downloads equals number of simultaneous downloads. Now comes the question of architecture. Really, this should be something generic, but our project has a pretty limited scope, so I'm just going to make this work with those thumb models that we have from the web service. And with this priority data downloader, I want to be able to queue up download tasks for those thumb models. So I'm just going to invent these functions, and we can fill them in soon. But func add download task for a thumb model of type thumb model, and similarly func remove download task, again for a thumb model of type thumb model. Alright, and I'm just gonna cut right to it. I'm gonna make the class for the task itself. This is gonna be kind of a friend class of the downloader. I guess it'll be tightly coupled. So I'm gonna say new file, again Swift file, and this is going to be priority data downloader task. And I'll drag this up to near the top. Beautiful. So let's make it. And I'm gonna have this be a class because it's going to be doing network activity spanning multiple functions. We don't want to create a nasty web of mutating. So I'll say class priority data downloader task, and I'm going to tightly couple it with priority data downloader. So I'm going to initialize it with a downloader of type priority data downloader, and this is going to be a task for one thumb model. So thumb model of type thumb model. Then I want to store these variables or these parameters in data download task, but I don't want to create a retain cycle. So I'm going to say private weak var downloader of type priority data downloader optional, and I want to expose access to the thumb model, but I don't want it to be able to be changed. So I'll just say let thumb model be of type thumb model, and I'll simply say self.downloader equals downloader, and self.thumb model equals thumb model. Finally, I would just like to expose that thumb model's index. So I'll say var thumb model index of type int. This will just return thumb model.index. Now I'm going to jump back to priority data downloader, and I'm going to create a list or an array of these tasks. So I'm going to say private set var task list is an array of priority data downloader task. When I add or remove a task, I kind of want to make sure it already exists or check if it does already exist. I really only want one task per thumb. So we kind of fall into a repeating pattern where we need the index, the task index, I suppose, for a thumb model and to know if it exists. So I'm going to say private func task index for, I guess, thumb model of type thumb model. And it might exist, it might not. Sounds like a candidate for optional. I'll have it return nil by default. And I will say for index task in task list dot enumerated, I guess, if task dot thumb model index equals thumb model dot index, then return index. Then I would like to know if a task exists or not. So I'm just going to make a func does task exist, again for a thumb model of type thumb model, and that's a bool. And this can just return task index for thumb model is not equal to nil. To add a download task, I want to check if it already exists. So I'll do guard not does task exist for thumb model, else return. Otherwise, let's go ahead and add it. So I'm going to say let new task equals priority data downloader task. Downloader is of course our self. Thumb model is the thumb model we're passing in. Then I can just append it to task list dot append new task. And I'm going to print this off. So I'm going to print task added. And I'm just going to print this thumb model's image slash emoji. For remove download task, let's see if we can get an index. So guard let index equal task index for thumb model, else return. And let's just remove that index from the list. So task list dot remove at index. Now I'm going to jump back to my page view model. Beautiful. So let's make a copy, and it's going to of course be on my page view model because that already owns everything else. So I'm going to say private let downloader equal priority data downloader. And for the number of simultaneous downloads, I'm going to pick 2. That's a really good number to pick for that. Then I want a way to queue up downloads. So I'm just going to go to the bottom of this main class body, and I'm going to make a new function, private func load up downloader with tasks. And what I want to do is loop through every cell on the screen and queue those into the downloader if we have a model. So I'm going to use very similarly to before, first cell index on screen, set that equal to layout dot first cell index on screen, and again last cell index on screen, set that equal to layout dot last cell index on screen. Then I just want to loop through from first cell index on screen all the way to last cell index on screen. So I'm just going to say for cell index in first cell index on screen to last cell index on screen. And I want to see if we have a model. So if let thumb model equal thumb model at cell index, then simply downloader dot add download task for thumb model. we need to call this function. So I'm going to call it at the very beginning of fetch more thumbs if necessary. So load up downloader with tasks. Let's see if we get a printout. Alright, so we can pretty much see a download task got added for every cell. Rock on. So let's start to bone out priority data downloader task. I would love to give this some conception of state, I guess active. So I'm gonna say private set var active equals false. And I'm gonna just add that mock download function. And I'll just do it the same way or similar to how I did the fake web service call on my page model. So I'm gonna dispatch queue.global quality of service background .async. Then I'm gonna sleep, so thread.sleep for time interval, and I guess I'm gonna do time interval .random in, and I'll sleep from 0.4 to 1.0 seconds, and then I'll dispatch queue main async to finish on the main thread. So when I start, I want to say active equals true. And at the very end, I want to say self.active equals false. And I want to simulate success or failure here. So what I really want to do is, I guess, randomly fail. So I'll say let failure equals int.random in, I guess, 0 to 2 equals 0. And I'll just put that all in parentheses. So I guess if failure, we'll do one thing, otherwise we'll do another. And I guess ultimately, since this is a friend class of priority data downloader, let's just make some functions they can call. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this print statement too. We're not going to need that anymore. So I'll just add these in a little extension, priority data downloader, and I'll just make two cases, func, and I'm going to say success and failure case. So handle download task did succeed, and that can get a task of type priority data downloader task. And similarly, I'll make func handle download task did fail. Again, taking a task of type priority data downloader task and doing something. So I'm going to jump now back into priority data downloader task. And for this failure case, I want to say self.downloader dot handle download task did fail with self. And in the other case, I want to say self.downloader unwrap.handle download task did succeed, self. And I'm going to move this self.active equals false to before each of these owner calls, I'll call them. Alright, so we can communicate that task succeeding and failing to the downloader, but now the downloader needs to be able to communicate it to the view model. So we get into kind of spaghetti mode here. So I'm going to make a protocol for priority data downloader, and I'm going to call that protocol priority data downloader delegate. And I'm just going to give this 3 functions, one for success, one for failure, and another one for start, for when the download starts. So I'm going to say func data download did start. And here I'm going to use thumb model. So I'm going to say thumb model of type thumb model. And then I'm going to say func data download did succeed. Again for a thumb model of type thumb model. And finally func data download did fail, taking a thumb model of type thumb model. Locked and loaded, looking good in the hood. So let's go ahead and add an instance member variable for our delegate protocol. And again, we want to prevent that retain cycle. So again, this needs to be an any object. So we can say weak var delegate priority data downloader delegate optional. And let's go ahead and start calling some of these functions on the delegate. So in handle download task did succeed, what do we want to do? We want to say delegate unwrapped dot data download did succeed, passing in the task's thumb model. In handle download task did fail, we want to say delegate unwrapped dot data download did fail for task dot thumb model. In both of these cases, I think we also want to remove the task. So I'm going to say remove download task, task dot thumb model, and remove download task, task dot thumb model. So that's what happens after we finish the start function. But how do we call the start function? We need some way to, I guess, choose a task to start, or yeah, let's have some way to choose a task to start. So I'm going to say private func choose task to start, and that is going to return an optional priority data downloader task. And I'm just going to return nil by default. But I think to choose a task to start, we can just start by picking one that isn't currently active. So I'll just say for task in task list, if task.active is false, then return task. Simple as that. So now that we can choose a task to start, we need some logic to start up the tasks based on this number of simultaneous downloads. So we really want to keep our number of downloads capped by that. And to do that, we really need to know how many downloads are active. So I'm going to introduce some new functionality here. I'm going to say private func compute number of active downloads. And as a helper for this, I suppose I would like to store that number. I'm going to say private var underscore number of active downloads. Have that start at 0. And computing that is pretty easy. And we only really need to compute that if one of the task's active states changed. So I'm going to start it at 0. Number of active downloads equals 0. Then I'm just going to loop through the tasks for task in task list. And then if task.active equals true, we've got another active one. So increment number of active downloads by 1. Now that we've got that, when do we need to compute the number of active downloads? Anytime any task.active changes. And obviously, at the end of this start function, or just before we call these, parent methods, the active state changes. So that means that in both of these cases, we need to compute the number of active downloads. And I'm going to do it after the remove, compute number of active downloads. So what about add download task? Well, the tasks don't start out active. They're always going to start out not active. So we don't really need to compute it there. But I guess if we did want to change it and make it so the task could start out active, maybe we would want to compute the number of active downloads there. For remove download task, we for sure want to compute the number of active downloads because maybe we removed an active task. So now we have a way to choose a task to start, but we still don't have a way to start a task. So let's introduce another function, and I'm going to call this start tasks if necessary. And this is finally going to factor in that number of simultaneous downloads. So while the number of active downloads is less than the number of simultaneous downloads, let's try to get a task to start. So if let task equals choose task to start, then start the task. Otherwise, there are no tasks to start, must exit. So just return in that case. So starting the task is as simple as saying task.start. And when we start the task, I'm going to jump into priority data downloader task. We see that active changes. I'm going to jump back to priority data downloader. So immediately after we start it, we need to compute the number of active downloads because that is going to affect this loop too. That's going to essentially stop us from looping too many times or dare I say infinitely. And the other thing we must do is we have that delegate method to call. So I'm going to say delegate unwrapped dot data download did start, and it's going to be task dot thumb model. The bang bang boogie and don't stop the boogie. So we've got this protocol. Let's use it. So I'm going to go to my page view model, and I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to make another extension my page view model, which is a priority data downloader delegate, and I'm going to let the compiler puke on me so I can insert these protocol stubs and then delete this code. Not needed, not needed, not needed. Now that we conform to the protocol, let's link up that delegate. So in init, I'm just going to say downloader.delegate equals self. And we need to call that function start tasks if necessary. And I think the time to do that is going to be here in load up downloader with tasks. And I'm choosing to do it here instead of in add download tasks because I think we want to compute the priorities and then do downloader dot start tasks if necessary, but that'll be for the future. So we're going to actually call this function now, start tasks if necessary, which means we should get all the way to these functions being called. So what do we want to do when these functions are called? Well, I think we want the UI to reload. It's probably going to mean something change that we need to display and update, or that fail cell or that success cell, or maybe it switches back to a loading state. So in all cases, I'm going to do object will change dot send object will change dot send and object will change dot send. And I think we may want to load up more tasks. So I'm just going to say load up downloader with tasks in these two cases, success or failure. Load up downloader with tasks, load up downloader with tasks. All right, so we're getting the communication from the task to the downloader to the view model. We've got to go one step further to the model. So I'm just going to make functions to, I guess, notify that these events have happened. So I'm going to say func notify data download success, taking as an argument a thumb model of type thumb model, and then I want func notify data download failure, taking a thumb model of type thumb model, and finally func notify data download start, taking a thumb model of type thumb model. And I'm just going to print these. So print data download success, and I'm just going to put thumb model dot image, and I'll just print success and failure. Start is going to get too spammy. So now I've just got to call these functions, and I'm going to do that from the view model. So before we load up downloader with tasks, or even before object will change, I guess I want to do this notify. So for did start, I'm going to say model dot notify data download start, and just passing forward that thumb model. And did succeed, it's model dot notify data download success thumb model, and in fail, it's model dot notify data download failure, passing in the model. I'm going to jump back to the model. Let's run and see if we get those prints. And let's see what it looks like. Okay, I can see successes and failures printing out. But what in the heck is going on? I saw that same football several times. The baseball I saw quite a few times. And I've been seeing lots of monkeys. So obviously we have a problem. These things aren't stopping. So we've got a problem, but I'm pretty sure we can solve it. We've just got to store the state for these download statuses and be able to only queue up new downloads when they haven't succeeded or failed. And that brings us to an interesting conundrum, because we would want to store that on thumb model, but this comes from a web service, or a mock web service. I'm going to say comes from mock web service. So my idea is to make a sister structure, and I'm going to say this stores local data about web service object. And this sister structure I'll just call thumb download status, and I'll give it 2 vars. Download did succeed as a boolean, and var download did fail as a boolean. And the idea is that back in my page model, there's going to be a sister list to our thumb model list. So I'm going to say private var thumb download status list is an array of thumb download status is. And whenever we clear, when we remove all the thumb models, let's remove all the thumb download statuses. So thumb download status list dot remove all. In simulate range fetch complete, when we grow this thumb model list, let's go ahead and also grow thumb download status list. So while thumb download status list count is less than that new capacity, I'm gonna make a new status. So let new status equal thumb download status. And for download did succeed and download did fail, I'm just going to start them at false. And I'm going to go ahead and append those to thumb download status list. So thumb download status list dot append new status. So now we've got to set those actual values in these notify functions. So I'm gonna make some little helper functions to set and get the success and failure and to check if we're in range. So I'm gonna say func, this will actually be private func in download status range, I guess taking a thumb model, and that just returns a Boolean. And I just want to make sure that the index is in range. So if thumb model dot index is greater than or equal to 0 and thumb model dot index is less than thumb download status list dot count, I want to return true. Otherwise, I want to return false. And I'm going to make private func set download status success for a thumb model of type thumb model to value of bool. So I'm just going to say if in download status range for thumb model, then thumb download status list at thumb model dot index dot download did succeed equals value. Similarly, I'm going to make one for failure. So private func set download status failure for a thumb model of type thumb model to a value bool. Again, if in download status range for this thumb model, then thumb download status list at thumb model dot index dot download did fail equals value. Then I'm going to make get functions. So private func get download status success for a thumb model, taking a thumb model as an argument, returning a bool. If in download status range for thumb model, then return thumb download status list at thumb model dot index dot download did succeed. Otherwise, by default, return false. Then private func get download status failure for a thumb model of type thumb model, returning Boolean. again, if we're in range, in download status range, model, then return thumb download status list at thumb model dot index, and set the dot, or return the dot download did fail. Otherwise, return false. So now these should be easy to fill in. For notify data download success, we just want to set download status success for this thumb model to true, and we want to set download status failure for this thumb model to false. For notify data download failure, we want to set download status success for this thumb model to false, and we want to set download status failure for this thumb model to true. For notify data download start, we want to set them both to false. So set download status success for this thumb model to false, and set download status failure for this thumb model to false. Man, oh Shebbets. I would love to be able to convey that data to the view model, because really on the view model, we want to be able to say stuff like this: func did thumb download succeed at an index of type int, returning a boolean. And I'm just going to return false for now. And similarly, I would love to be able to say func did thumb download fail at an index of type int, returning boolean. And again, I'll just return false by default. This is what I want. So I'm going to copy these two functions from the view model, and I'm going to go into the model, and I'm going to go straight to the bottom and paste those in and see if I can use what I've just built to fill these in. So I guess we can get the model from an index. So if let thumb model equal thumb model at this index, then return get download status success for this thumb model, otherwise return false. And for failure, I can say if let thumb model equal thumb model at that index, then go ahead and return get download status failure for that thumb model, otherwise return false. Now going back to my page view model, I can just map these forward. So did thumb download succeed can be model dot did thumb download succeed, and passing forward this index. And did thumb download fail can be model dot did thumb download fail, passing forward again this index. So we've got all that information now, and I think we can finally apply it to load up downloader with tasks, because our problem was queuing up tasks when they were already successful. So I just want to add an extra clause here to say that after we have our thumb model, and then not did thumb download succeed for cell index, then we would queue it to the downloader. So I'm gonna build and see if we eventually stop downloading stuff. So I can see some successes and failures. It definitely looks like it stopped though. So I think we're on the right track. Dynamic. So let's actually get something to visibly change. I'm gonna go into thumb view and I want to pass in download did succeed and download did fail. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna say let download did succeed be a boolean and let download did fail be a boolean. This is going to cause problems. The preview should start complaining. So I'm just going to add those to the preview. Download did succeed is false. Download did fail as false. And I guess I'll get these onto new lines. We're also creating a thumb view in my page view. So after width and height, we should have download did succeed, and that is going to be from the view model dot did thumb download succeed at cell model dot index, and download did fail is going to be view model dot did thumb download fail at cell model dot index. So let's make more stuff to render. I'm gonna go into thumb view, and what I really want is, I guess, in addition to this placeholder content, a downloading content. So I'm gonna actually abstract out progress view because I'm gonna use it twice. So I'm gonna say private func progress view return some view. And I'm just gonna move this code for progress view with progress view style into this progress view function. And I'm just gonna call it in this placeholder content progress view. Then I'm gonna copy and paste placeholder content, and I'm gonna change this into the second one into downloading content. And I'm just gonna change the color of the background, the foreground color of the background, to gray. And I'm gonna make one more for failed content. So I'm gonna copy and paste downloading content, and I'm gonna rename it to failed content, but I'm not gonna use a progress view. I'm gonna open SF symbols, and what I want is an X mark, and the one I really want is maybe X mark circle fill. So I'm gonna copy that name, and in failed content I'm gonna say image with system name, what I just copied, X mark circle fill. And I'm gonna make this big. I'll say dot font, and I'll do dot system of size, I guess 46. And I'll even make it bold. And then I'm gonna make this have a foreground color of white. And for the background, I'm gonna make it the foreground color of the background be red, and the opacity will be 100%. So I'm gonna delete dot opacity 0.5. Now in the body, in this case where there is a thumb model, I want to use those new variables I just injected. So if download did succeed, else if download did fail, else. So thumb content, I'm going to move into download did succeed. So I'm cutting thumb content and pasting it into the case where download did succeed. For download did fail, I'm gonna use failed content. Otherwise, I'm gonna put downloading content. And that should be it. Let's see what she looks like. Well, it certainly looks like it downloads thumbnails. The failure cases right now are infinitely going to keep retrying. We're going to fix that later. I'm going to kill this, call it a success, pat yourself on the back. I'm going to get rid of these print statements real quick. And remember to like, subscribe, share with your friends, send me a comment, send me an email, and you can watch the last and final part of this tutorial on YouTube. And remember, the repository link is in the video description. Thank you, and happy coding!